Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Songwriter Spotlight. My name is Sonia. I am the director here at the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center, and I'm going to be your host tonight. If you're not familiar with the center, let me tell you what we do. We work to promote and preserve the musical heritage of the West Tennessee region. We do that several ways. One, through the Tina Turner Museum, Sleepy John Estes Home, and of course the West Tennessee Music Museum. We are also official locations along the Tennessee Music Pathways, as well as the Americana Music Triangle. If you've not visited us, please come visit us soon. We're located right off of Interstate 40 at exit 56 in Brownsville, Tennessee. So tonight, I have a very special guest, Mrs. Abbye West Pates. I've had the pleasure of hearing Abbye a couple of times in person, and I've been very impressed with her style and her incredible songwriting talent. So help me welcome her to our Songwriter Spotlight. Abbye, thank you for being here tonight. It's a pleasure to have you. Tell us, who is Abbye West Pates?
Well, I'm a gardener, I'm a wife, I'm a songwriter, I'm a worship leader. And I'm a 13-year-old Memphian and lifelong Southerner, and I grew up in Mississippi. Snapshot.
When did you get into music?
So I've been doing music most of my life. I started singing in church, all sorts of things, like a lot of people do in church. But I've been I took a piano lesson every week from first grade to my senior year. I picked up the guitar in high school, and I've been singing my whole life, and I've been writing my whole life, in my journals, poetry, and then I started songwriting. I think my sophomore year of high school, I wrote my first song. So, yeah.
Do you remember what the first song was that you wrote?
Gosh, I don't remember the name of it, but I do remember it had the phrase "knight in shining armor" in it. Very 10th grade love song sort of thing, and I wrote it on the piano. So I do remember that part.
So, when did you pick the guitar up?
I was in 9th grade. I remember specifically I wanted to start learning songs to play in my youth group, worship songs. And so a guy in my youth group taught me, you only have to know 3 or 4 chords, the G, C, E minor, and D. Started playing worship songs. Yeah, so 9th grade I got my first, an Ovation Applause was my first ever guitar. So, yeah.
So share the story behind the first song that you brought for us tonight.
I am going to play a song called Mr. Cooley. It's off my first record, which I released in 2012. And I like to play this one first or early on in my set because it really is kind of a journey song from the Mississippi town that grew me up to being in Memphis now. And it has pieces of my grandfather in it. Mr. Cooley is a made-up character, but Cooley is a popular last name in my town. There's Cooley Motor Company, there's Cooley Drug Company, and my grandfather was kind of a hard man to get along with sometimes. And I thought about him because as an adult, there were ways that I looked back and wished we had related better. I wished I had listened a little more, and I wish he had listened a little more. But he was a gardener, so I thought about some of those things. I'm a gardener now, and I thought about how I wish I could have learned gardening from him, but we were just too disconnected. So really it's sort of looking back and you know what you know now, but you wish you just could have been a little more open then. Yeah. Every year the summer knocks us down. We shut our blinds like there's a criminal in town and fill our glass snatched me up with time. Oh, wait till low, but never said goodbye. Now the family's moved and the house is sold, but we don't look back, no, we don't look back until you prep us, Mr. Cooley. And do you see the writing on the wall, where everyone knows everyone, but no one knows a thing? Is this what you'd always dream? Oh, Mr. Cooley. Oh, Mr. Cooley. Now I live 300 miles away, on the river where Elvis' body lay. I wish I'd known you, I wish I'd known. Oh, I wish I'd known you, I wish I'd known. And do you preference, Mr. Cooley? And do you see the writing on the wall? Do you preference, Mr. Cooley? And do you see the writing on the wall, where everyone knows everyone, but no one knows a thing? No one knows a thing. Is this what you always dream? Oh, Mr. Cooley. Oh, Mr. Cooley. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da, Mr. Cooley. Da-da-da-da-da-da, Mr. Cooley.
Abbye, music has obviously been a big part of your life. When you were performing in Mississippi, were you performing your own music, or is that something that's kind of a Memphis thing that happened when you came to Memphis?
That's a great question, and I've thought some about that. You know, growing up, I mentioned that I sang a lot in church, but there were not places for me to go play original songs. Now, I played for my youth group, things like that, but I had no vision or an idea that I was going to go off and be a performing singer-songwriter. I knew I wanted to write songs once I started writing them, but that just wasn't something I witnessed. It wasn't something I saw. It was out there. It was other. When I got to college, I played my first ever original set. I don't even know I guess it was a concert. My campus ministry, the Wesley Foundation, I just asked if I could do a concert, and they said yes. And that was my first ever concert my senior year of college. But in general, I would say, so I started playing a little bit live in college, but it really was coming to Memphis that was like, oh, there's a path for this. I could see there being a path. Yeah.
What brought you to Memphis?
In 2005, so almost 16 years now, I worked at a ministry called SOS, Service Over Self. And I had been to Memphis one time when I was younger and didn't really know much about it, but I just fell in love with it. And, you know, being from my one high school town, I come from a place with a county high school where everybody comes into that one school and everybody knows everybody, which is great. But Memphis just felt like, oh my gosh, this is huge. This is alive with people and activity, and I loved it.
You've drawn influences from your early life in Mississippi. What else influences or inspires your music?
Yeah, that's also a good question, because there's a sense in which kind of everything influences it. Like the the most ordinary things sometimes are what's influencing your music most. Like sometimes it's like you're riding down the road and there's just a person on the sidewalk and they look particularly sad or they look particularly interesting, and you like start imagining their life scenario or what they could be going through, and you like have to get home and write it down, or you put your phone on the stand and you start a voice memo. So there's a sense in which the ordinary inspires songs. But I also have some very particular songwriters whose way of writing influences me. Some of those are Patty Griffin, who's really well known in the Americana world. Lori McKenna is another influence. And then Sarah Groves is a songwriter that has been influencing me since I was 16 years old. She is just, one of the things that influences me is watching songwriters for a long time evolve in their music and evolve in their life experience. And then I'm a lover of nature. I love Tennessee state parks. To get through the pandemic year of 2020, I spent a lot of time hiking and just being in quiet, beautiful places. And I had my journal with me everywhere I went. And I needed this solitude to kind of gather my thoughts, and I still need that. So I hope I'll keep that practice up.
Tell us about your next song.
Yeah, so the next song is called Stairs. And also, this actually is from my 2016 original record. That record's called Miles of Green. But Stairs was written when I was driving around. Again, we're back in my hometown, small town in South Mississippi. And I was driving around and I drove past an old friend of mine's house, this 2-story pink house. And I could see her so clearly. You know, I had sleepovers and went over there. But I remembered, this is another example of that songwriting influence. I remembered how difficult her family life was. At this point, a couple of her parents had divorced. This is when I'm an adult, a young adult. Parents had divorced. One of her siblings had died. And all I could think about was how hard her life had been. And I pictured the stairs of her house. I just pictured, because I was driving by, it's like the front door, and I pictured the stairs. And it's like I could remember her house, but I just couldn't picture her in it. And I couldn't even picture, it's like life had been so hard for her. I got this whole vision of how that life couldn't hold her anymore. And even though we're not friends anymore, I mean, we're not even Facebook friends. You know you're not friends when you're not Facebook friends. Nothing happened. We just fell out of touch. And I wondered if she spent her life trying to make amends for that hard life. And so this is kind of an imagining of that. This is Stairs.
mentioned some of the people that have been influences on you on your songwriting. You talked about how their styles had evolved over the years. How has your music evolved over the years?
I think one of the biggest ways it's evolved is just in sound. I think that's kind of a first basic one, is you learn to do what fits you, you learn to sing what fits you, you learn to play in a way that fits you. You kind of learn from listening back to yourself over the years and discerning what fits you and what sounds best. But in some ways it's also evolved in, this might sound weird, but it kind of gets, for me, gets narrower, and I think it fits into what I mean of starting to feel like I'm getting my own sound, making my own way, and my own, being what Abbye is going to be. Whereas in the beginning, you just write, your songs might sound all these different ways, and not all of them feel at home in me. So some ways the evolution is actually narrowing in on and zoning in on what is me. Yeah.
How did COVID affect your writing?
It really stalled it for a while. You know, the first several months, it was just so hard. I am a bivocational musician, like a lot of people. I have another part-time job. So not only was I furloughed from that job for 3 months, but, you know, as with everyone else, everything stopped. I remember laying on my bed, having a conversation about a big event. I also travel as a worship leader that we might talk about more later. I do a lot of events at churches and camps in the spring and summer, and just call after email, canceled. And I think I was so sad from all of that. I was not writing and processing other than journal. I was writing a lot in my journal, but I was not really writing songs. And it took months, probably 5 or 6 months, for me to feel like I was really writing songs again. And then in the fall of 2020, I really started to get some energy around it again.
I know that your next song wasn't actually written during COVID times, but tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, It'll Get Better is a song kind of about dealing with being an adult and all your friends moving away. I know your friends move away a lot. I mean, that can happen a lot in life, but when I was growing up, your friends just didn't leave. You were from the town you're in, you stay in the town you're in, and this song, I wrote it 2 months after one of my very best friends moved cities, and not just a weekend car drive. And I think one thing I like to kind of talk about this song is I've only played it out a couple of times before everything shut down, and it's an unreleased song, is that the chorus says, "It'll get better with time," which feels like a cliche thing if you say it in real life, like, oh, it'll get better, just give it time. But sometimes you can say something in a song that could sound cliche in talking, and then you put it in a song and all of a sudden it's not cliche. And so when I put it in the song, I didn't mean for it to feel like brush your grief under the rug and move on with it, because that wasn't how I was feeling at all. I actually was kind of communicating to myself, yeah, you need time, but it's going to get better. And I was just really trying to convince myself. But you know, as COVID went on and became a thing, it started to feel a little relevant, because even though our friends didn't move away, it sure felt like it. We're all stuck in our living rooms and we can't hang out with them, and it started to feel a little like, is this going to get better with time? I'm not really sure. So. It's a hard road to walk with no friends to come along. You wake up in the morning and there's nobody to call. There's a crack It'll get better, better in time. Heard a joke in black. I had to laugh to myself, 'cause no jokes half as funny without you here to tell. And when you left this town, friend, it took a part of me, like a runaway memory. I gotta squint to see, but it'll get better. Oh, it'll be fine. I know it sounds simple, but all you need is time, and you won't forget it. Your heart won't let it. Oh, it'll get better, better with time. If I'm honest, I'm afraid to move on. There's no friend quite like you. What I mean is I'm afraid that you'll move on too. I know it'll get better. I know it'll be fine. You make it sound so simple. I guess I'll learn with time. And I won't forget you, and my heart won't let you go too far. No matter where you are, oh, it'll get better. Yeah, it'll get better. Oh, better with time. Yeah, it'll get better, better with time.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Songwriter Spotlight. We're here tonight with Memphis songwriter Abbye West Pates. Abbye, how many recordings do you actually have? And how can people find you online if they're interested in hearing more of your music?
So I have 3 collections. So I have 2 full-length original records, Leaving the Shadows in 2012 and Miles of Green in 2016. And then my 3rd collection of songs I released in April 2020, right at the beginning of COVID season. And it's a 6-song collection of hymns. Hymns that I grew up singing, at least most of them. And then one hymn that I actually wrote a whole new melody to. That was fun. And then I've released a few singles here and there, and I hope to release several singles this year. Yeah, the first place would be AbbyeWestPates.com, and I'll spell that because it's a lot of names. ABBYE West PATES, AbbyeWestPates.com, and I try to do a good job of keeping all the tracks there you can listen to. But of course, it's available every single place you stream music, so Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, YouTube, all those good places. And then I do have several videos that you can find on YouTube. I'd love to have people engage with me there too.
I'm really interested in the hymns that you talked about. Do you have one that you can play us tonight?
I would love to. So I Need Thee Every Hour. I grew up singing this one. It was one of my favorite ones. So just a little bit of background on why I've picked hymns. So I grew up in a very traditional, I grew up in a United Methodist church with very traditional style of music. And there's some hymns that have really accessible melodies, and there's a lot of hymns that don't. They're very choral, we're just in a different time where people sing differently. I Need Thee Every Hour was one of those rare hymns. It's easy to sing, and it was always the one that I looked forward to. This one and like Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, which is also on the hymns EP. But this one's also special because I was really close to my grandmother, and when she was dying in a scenario where thankfully I had several days where she's in a hospital bed. Unfortunately, I'll never know if she really heard me singing, but I hope so. So I had her little brown Cokesbury hymnal, and I was singing to her, I Need Thee Every Hour. and a couple of her other favorites. So this one's also just special to me because I just love that it's these simple words that aren't about theology and doctrine. Well, they are about theology. They're about believing that God is with us. But they're not about all these other petty things that we try to figure out in life. They're just about believing that there's a God that's with you. And yeah, I'd be happy to share this one with you.
But notice when you were talking about people that influence you, other songwriters, they were all women. March is Women's History Month. I'm really interested in what advice would you give other women who are wanting to enter the music industry?
I think the most important thing is to be yourself. Be who you are as you're figuring out who you are, what your music's like, what your place is in your city, your genre, all those things. I, living in Memphis, feel really grateful for a really open and welcoming music community. I was having this conversation with a friend recently. I can think of 3 men right now because, we know that in a lot of areas of music business, it's just more men dominating decision makers, or that just have the influence. But I can think of 3 right now in Memphis who have invited me, welcomed me when I said, could we have coffee and talk about X? Of course we can, let's meet for coffee. So maybe my experience is not even all that representative. I do need to say I feel grateful for that. But I do know from watching other women, from hearing their experiences, that that's not everybody's experience. And so I feel like from watching them and being influenced by them, that if you try to, let's say there's like a man that's over some important event that you want to be a part of and want to play. And if they don't accept you and you don't feel like a part of it, don't kill yourself trying to be a part of that club, trying to be a part of that group. Go find the people who will accept you and move on and go to the next person and go to the next person. That I really do think that's going to serve you well in all areas of life, but especially all areas of learning who you are as an artist.
That's perfect advice. Thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. I hope that you've enjoyed Abbye and her music. Be sure and check her out online and follow her on her social media channels. And plan to join us next week, Thursday evening, 6 p.m. for another Songwriter Spotlight. Abbye, thank you for being here. It has been a pleasure. I know you have a song that you're going to play us out on, but I want to hear the story about it first.
I do, and this is my favorite show closer. It's called Rich Ones. And this song, it's the last song on my record, Miles of Green, and you know, we all know as musicians and artists, and not only in this field, but you're not in it for the money, at least not when you're starting out, and most of us forever will never be in it for the money, but you have to really love what you do. And this is really about me deciding and recognizing I care more about the people around my dinner table, maybe not in COVID life, but in real life. The people in my life matter a lot more than the ladders I'm climbing. More money than I'll ever see, buying more house than I'd ever need. It's a life that I can only imagine on TV screen. But I guess that someone can believe it's a life that we should